40 years ago, on March 27, 1986, Honda became the first of the Japanese automakers to launch a luxury brand in North America. Meet Acura. Derived from the Latin word acutus, meaning to sharpen, the logo not only represents an A, but also a caliper. Hence their slogan, precision-crafted performance. When the first 60 dealerships opened across North America, Acura launched with two models, the entry-level Integra, a legend in its own right, and the model that we will be focusing on today, the flagship, the Legend. So join me as we travel back in time and take a look at both generations of the iconic model that started it all for Japanese luxury cars. And being that this episode is to be released in March of 2026, Acura's actual 40th anniversary month, I knew this had to be a special episode. So I brought in a special guest this time, Mr. Acura legend himself, Tyson Hugie. We're going to hear from him later in the episode, and he's going to take us on a little tour around two of his second-gen legends. But first, we got to look at the first-gen. Now, don't be skipping ahead and sleeping on this one. It's pretty good in its own right. Let me tell you why. Believe it or not, the Legend was actually developed as part of a joint venture with Austin Rover Group, or British Leyland as they were known at the time, called Project XX. British Leyland, which was struggling financially at the time, approached Honda with the intent to jointly develop a new executive car to replace their aging SD1. While other Japanese automakers had already turned down this offer, Honda saw it as an opportunity to not only develop their first luxury car, but also to gain better access to the European market where restrictions on Japanese cars were intensifying. This resulted in the Rover 800 series for British Leyland, as well as a number of other Rover badged Honda models, and of course, the Acura Legend. Well, enough talk, let's look at this thing. The styling, while perhaps nothing overly eye-catching, is quite contemporary for 1986. It looks like a car that could have come out in like 1990. It's just a very classy looking car, and one thing that really stands out on it is the fit and finish. The panel gaps are very tight and consistent, and I really like the two-tone paint colors, which I believe all the colors were for 86 and 87, with the darker shade on the bottom. There's also nice tasteful chrome outlines that run around the grille, around the windows, under the headlights, and above the side moldings. It's little details like this that really set it apart from the Accord, which was also new for 1986 and pretty nice in its own right. As a flagship luxury car, the Legend of course came with alloy wheels, but they didn't bother getting too original with them. Speaking of the grille, for 86 it's plain and unbranded by any badge. If you exclude the wheels, the only Acura nameplate on the entire exterior is on the trunk lid. In 1986, Acura didn't yet have their familiar logo. In fact, we won't see that until the second gen. Of course, outside of North America, these are just badged as Hondas, and you'll find an H logo on the grille. In the 1986 Motor Week review of the Legend, John Davis actually criticizes this empty grille, calling it a gaping opening where a big H should reside. Well, I don't know if someone at Honda heard him or if other people were saying similar things, but in 1987 they added a V6 badge to the grille. It might have also just been to make sure that people do know the Legend does indeed have a V6, since this was their first V6 in a production vehicle. After all, 4 cylinders are for Accord peasants. Hello, Acura Customer Relations. You need to make sure people know that these Legends don't use the Accord engine. You know what my neighbor Shannon said when she saw my new Legend? She said she likes my new Accord. She thinks it's an Accord. No, you need to tell her I have just as many cylinders as her Cressida Hello? Gaping opening or not, with the Acura logo not yet in existence, better to leave this grille blank than put an H on it. Sure, people loved Honda for economy cars in the 80s, but this would probably have not sold as a Honda. Americans who buy luxury cars like a brand with status, a brand that asserts wealth, a brand that tells people you had to drive to the city to get this car. So about this V6 engine, what is it? Well, son, long before the days of the J-Series, Honda had the C family of engines. Meet the C25, a single overhead cam 24-valve fuel-injected 2.5-liter V6. It's rated at 151 horsepower and 154 pound-feet of torque. I thought it would have been a little higher than that. After all, it's got red plug wires. It's still enough to put it on par with, if not above, most of its competitors, whether they be from Detroit, Europe, or even their homeland. Unlike J-Series engines, which have a 60-degree V angle, which is generally thought to be the sweet spot for V6s, the C-Series uses a 90-degree V angle, something you are more likely to see in V8 engines. In other words, this is the closest thing to a V8 engine Honda will ever make. But these engines don't actually vibrate or feel rough at all due to unbalanced firing, like you might expect would happen on a 90-degree V6. In the Legend, the crank pins are offset by 30 degrees, making the firing interval an even 120 degrees. On top of that, the engine sits atop a powertrain subframe supported by hydraulic engine mounts. One more thing worth noting about this 2.5-liter engine is that while 99% of Honda models use the same standard oil filter, which is smart and very convenient for their customers, this engine actually uses a cartridge oil filter, long discontinued, so you'll have to go aftermarket now, unless you're hoarding a bunch of new old stock, which some of you probably are. Of course, we can tell from the sideways engine one thing that differs from most of their competitors. Like most Hondas, the Legend is front-wheel drive, unusual for a luxury car in this era. And this will turn off some purists, especially back in the 80s, who believe that a proper luxury car must be rear-wheel drive. But Honda wasn't looking to just do the same thing as everyone else, and they can be stubborn when they think their idea is right. Besides, Honda wasn't really interested in conforming to too many of the American luxury car stereotypes, and maybe in some ways they were trying to attract more of the slightly younger affluent individuals who perhaps didn't want to drive something too much like their dad's car. And I'm not saying they were targeting young people by any means. Most young people wouldn't have been able to afford one of these. I'm just saying they were targeting a slightly younger crowd than, say, Cadillac or Lincoln was. Makes sense, really, because selling a Japanese luxury car to someone in that age group would have been like trying to sell me an EV. Ridiculous! I ain't driving nothing that pulls me from the front like a horse carriage.
Yeah, why are the gauges round? Don't they know they should be rectangles?
Bah! What's with the third pedal? Why isn't the auto standard? I had an Oldsmobile with an auto in the 40s.
Yeah, we've been to the moon and I still gotta shift my own gears?
The Legend uses double wishbone suspension up front and nitrogen gas-filled shock absorbers in the back. Brakes are disc all the way around, and unlike a lot of luxury cars which come auto only, I'm happy to say the Legend can be had in either a 4-speed auto or a 5-speed manual. The way you should get it. Bah! Inside, the Legend is definitely a product of the 80s, but it's very nice. It's not trying to be your grandpa's Cadillac, there's no wood grain, and there's not even leather, at least not at first. But it has nice cloth fabric and a simple well laid out dash with a very good fit and finish. It uses Honda's standard 3-dial gauge cluster design that they used variations of across many models for many years, and one thing I really like about it is this little car diagram which illuminates which door is ajar, as well as show an open trunk or even a burnt out brake light bulb. The cluster backlighting is that pleasing teal green color that was very popular in the 80s and early 90s before manufacturers started getting cheap and making everything white. How boring.
See, there's a little rubber sheath over the clear bulbs that give it that nice pleasing teal color. This is what they cost cut out in the late 90s.
The only thing I really don't like about this interior is the volume for the radio. Both on the radio itself and the convenience one mounted on the instrument cluster pod is a switch. Volume should be controlled by rotary knobs and nothing else. I do like the built-in graphic EQ though, that's cool. One other thing that may seem slightly surprising for a flagship model, even in the mid-80s, is that all seat adjustments are manual. The Legend, as you would expect, comes with power mirrors, windows and door locks, cruise control, a power sunroof, and AC all as standard. In fact, the only option on the Legend for 86 is the automatic transmission, except for a few dealer-installed accessories like a car phone. After all, this is a flagship luxury car, it should come with everything, should it not? I agree with that sentiment. Unfortunately, Acura will not maintain that view for very long. Option packages are just too much of a cash cow to pass up. In 1987, Acura makes the sunroof an option, and there's also a leather package added which gives you not only leather seats, but a leather-wrapped steering wheel, heated mirrors, and power seat adjustments, but only for the driver. The passenger does not get such privileges. The leather package does require you to purchase the sunroof as well though in order to get it. It adds an L to the trunk lid, so it is essentially a trim level. They just don't call it a trim in the 87 brochure, they call it the luxury option package, but that changes in 88. Like I mentioned, the only other change for 87 was the addition of that V6 emblem on the grille. See, Shannon, I told you it was a V6! Hey buddy, quit blocking the road with that Honda. Honda? This is an Acura! Yeah, sure it is, and I'm driving a Lincoln. Same crap, different pile. Now move! Of course, there is some bigger news for 1987. Meet the Acura Legend Coupe. And this is a pretty sick coupe, I gotta say. They didn't just delete 2 doors off the Legend sedan and call it a day. In fact, this coupe doesn't share any sheet metal with the sedan, nor does it share any of the light fixtures. The coupe has its own unique taillights and more modern-looking one-piece headlights up front. Under the hood is different too, because the coupe uses a slightly larger 2.7-liter engine which makes 160 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. Unlike the sedan, the coupe gets double wishbone suspension on the rear and this more bulky, frankly uglier steering wheel, but more on this steering wheel in a minute. I really do like the styling of this coupe, and another cool thing about it is the rear windows roll down. How classy. The coupe is also available in an upper L trim, and selecting this trim adds the leather interior, power driver's seat, automatic climate control, a security system, an anti-lock braking system, and a little driver's information system in this area, which was formerly just a clock. And a storage compartment. The driver's information system is not only a glorified trip meter, which also shows fuel economy and distance to empty, but it also monitors your coolant and washer fluid level and oil level. It also alerts you when it's due for service. In late spring of 1987, a third trim is added to the coupe, a top-of-the-line LS model. The LS coupe adds some more new features, heated side view mirrors, a Bose audio system, and a driver's airbag. Now, I originally thought that all coupes came standard with an airbag because of this big steering wheel, but that's not the case. For 87 and 88, the airbag is an LS exclusive feature. For some reason though, non-airbag equipped coupes use the same big bulky steering wheel that looks exactly the same as the airbag wheel. But if you look close, there's no SRS stamp on it. This threw me for a loop for a while because I kept looking at pictures of L-grade coupes and thinking that they had an airbag just because of this wheel. I expected a non-airbag coupe to just use the same non-airbag steering wheel as the sedan, but that is not the case. For 1988, many of the new coupe features make their way into the sedan, most notably the 2.7 liter engine. The sedan, like the coupe, now comes in the same three trim levels, base, L, and LS. On the sedan, the L trim adds ABS, the sunroof, heated mirrors, the security system, leather, and the power driver's seat. Most of that is the same on the coupe, except like last year, automatic climate control and the driver's information system are L trim features on the coupe. For now at least, they are going to change this. The LS trim adds the automatic climate control to the sedan, and to both body styles adds the Bose audio system and the driver's airbag. For 1989, the driver's airbag becomes standard on all models across the board, and the sedan gets a cosmetic update. The sedan gets a new front bumper, now has one-piece headlights as well, and revised taillights, which now kind of just flow across the trunk lid in one unbroken line. I think these new taillights look a lot better actually. They've also added new side moldings and the Acura name to the grille to let the peasants on your street know what you are driving. They do switch the nameplates on the grille of the coupe as well, but that's the only cosmetic update the coupe gets for 89. Also, those unsightly washer fluid nozzles are now hidden up under the top of the hood on the windshield cowl where they belong. Now here's something I had never noticed before, but this was pointed out to me by contributor to the channel Gary, who sends me some of the brochures I use in my videos. Note on the 87 to 88 sedans how the fuel door crosses the body line there, and so it can't just be one flat piece. Well, now it's moved down and back a little so it doesn't hit the wheel well arch, so the fuel door doesn't interrupt that line anymore, which kind of looks better, but actually was probably done as cost cutting. I would imagine the fuel doors would be cheaper to produce now, and I would also assume it's easier to form the whole body panel this way too. Coupe models had the fuel door positioned here right from the get-go. The sedan model also now gets double wishbone suspension in the rear, just like the coupe. The driver's information system and automatic climate control gets bumped to an exclusively LS feature on the coupe, I guess so it would match the sedan, and leather is now optional to L models and standard only on the LS. Power seats now with 3 memory positions come on L and LS trims. A sunroof is now standard across the board. Again, I do miss the two-tone colors though. For the final 1990 model year, coupes get a little cosmetic update, which includes a revised grille with a body-colored outline, clear lens turn signals on the taillights, and a lip spoiler on LS trims. Body-colored mirrors are now present on all models, previously an LS exclusive feature. They've also finally added some wood grain, only on LS models. Whew, my, just look at this burl wood. Now we are getting upscale. As for the Legend, I think we can safely say it was a pretty good first entry into the luxury market for Honda. Acura really had to prove themselves, so they put a lot of effort into this, and it shows. Now they're gonna take the Legend's refinement to a whole nother level with the second gen, which we'll talk about next, but there's no denying that this first gen is a Legend too. That was a pun. We know, it wasn't funny. If you'd like to be as cool as me and get yourself one of these Acura Legend shirts. Now, if you'd like to be as nerdy as me and get yourself one of these Acura Legend shirts, they're available on my website, AcuraAdvice.com. They're only $15, or black is actually $20 because the supplier charges me more for black, but there's a bunch of other really nice colors that are only $15 each. So head on over to AcuraAdvice.com and there's a bunch of other shirts on there as well. The first-gen Legend was definitely a success, and Acura moved 268,849 of them over its 5-year model run. But competition was increasing, not just from the Europeans, but now Acura was facing competition from home. Both Toyota and Nissan wanted in on the American luxury market too, but Acura wasn't about to be left behind. The 91 Legend has been completely redesigned, and, well, just look at it. I think it's got a timeless look. I don't think it even looks dated in 2026. Although I don't really even like new car styling for the most part, so maybe I'm biased on that. Would you believe that some people tell me in the comments I'm stuck in the past? I mean, why would someone say that? Anyway, I think it's pretty good looking, and if it looks bigger to you than last year's, well, that's because it is. In fact, the wheelbase is increased by almost 6 inches, and this does translate to more passenger room inside. And the interior is a pretty nice place to be, especially on the top LS trim, which we are looking at here. It's got really nice leather, not only on the seats, but on the door panels, and just the right amount of wood grain to make it feel more upscale without going overboard. There's a proper volume knob on the radio, and the gauges are simple. I'm probably not going to give this gauge cluster any awards, but I think it's fine, and it's still got that little car display, so I'm happy. What about you, John? Are you happy with these gauges?
The car aimed at the performance-oriented luxury buyer should at least have a voltmeter and oil pressure gauge.
I've got to show you some of the things I read in the Car and Driver review of the 91 Legend, which I found quite funny. They didn't seem to like this interior very much, actually, but let's take a look at what they were saying. So Don here doesn't like the power steering feel or the acceleration. He says he doesn't like the interior, and he even says he doesn't understand the reason the Legend exists. But right here we learn why he doesn't like it. He prefers the Buick Park Avenue, which is a totally different style of luxury car that will appeal to a different type of luxury car buyer.
Why are the gauges round? Don't they know they should be rectangles?
And look, by the way guys, I like American land yacht luxury cars as much as the next guy. Like, there's definitely a time and place for them, but that's not what the Legend is trying to be. The other two guys complain about the interior too, but this guy William says he has trouble deciphering the climate control system. Bro, there's one dial. What do you want, hot or cold? You want defrost? Okay, it's the same button it's been for decades. I know auto climate control wasn't super common in the early 90s, it was still a higher end feature, but these guys are automotive journalists. They've surely tested many other climate controlled cars by the 90s, and this is a pretty simple one. This guy better brace himself for the climate control systems of the future if this one's too much for him. All three of them do complain about the automatic transmission as well, some of them complaining that it's not as smooth as the LS 400's transmission, which is fair criticism, but unlike the LS, the Legend is available with a 5-speed manual, and that's the way you should get it. Bah! Let's talk about what's under the hood of this new Legend. It's now got a larger 3.2 liter displacement engine, and horsepower gets a nice bump up to 200 and torque to 210. But you're probably noticing something else about this engine. It's mounted longitudinally. Does that mean this new Legend is rear-wheel drive? No, of course not. This is a Honda we're talking about. It's still front drive, but Honda says they chose this new layout to help them achieve higher structural rigidity targets and to achieve an ideal front drive 60-40 weight distribution. Acura also says this orientation results in less noise and vibration. As an added bonus, this layout helps the Legend keep a low hood line so no one at the country club need ever know you secretly bought a front-wheel drive car. Of course, this does result in kind of an interesting differential design to bring the power from behind the engine back up to the front wheels. Brakes are of course 4-wheel disc, and the Legend continues to offer 4-wheel independent double wishbone suspension, and ABS is now standard across all models. The Legend also continues to be offered in coupe form. So let's take a look at the new coupe. Once again, the coupe doesn't share any body panels with the sedan. In fact, the door handles are oddly even different. The front end is similar, but it has longer headlamp assemblies and a shorter grille. The rear of the coupe is very different, with unique flat tail lights on what Acura calls a slightly concave tail section. The rear window also has a steeper rake than the sedan. It really gives the coupe more of a wedge shape when viewed from the side. I really like the rear of the coupe. if you couldn't tell. The rear windows of the coupe still roll down, and the coupe has one really fancy feature that the sedan does not have for some reason: soft touch closing doors. Tyson's going to demonstrate that for you in a minute. Now let's talk about the trims. The sedan, like last year, comes in base, L, and LS. The coupe comes in just L and LS. I'm going to start with the LS trim and work backwards this time. LS trims are loaded with automatic climate control, a Bose audio system, a power sunroof, heated mirrors, leather interior, power seats with driver's memory, real burl walnut wood grain trim, and dual front airbags. The LS also has a fancy illuminated entry system where the interior lights come on not only when a door is open, but also when you remove your key from the ignition, and when you close the door, the lights stay on at a reduced level for 6 seconds, then fade out. This is a common feature in cars today, but it wasn't in the early 90s. Step back to the L trim and you lose the passenger airbag, the wood trim, the Bose audio system, and the automatic climate control. You also lose the standard leather, but leather can still be added to the L trim as an option. You also lose the power passenger seat and the fancy illuminated entry system. Body side moldings on the L trim are black instead of body colored. Now, if you are a complete peasant and buy a base model sedan, you lose the heated mirrors, there's no bronze tint in the glass, no steering wheel controls for the audio system, no sunroof, and you won't even get overhead map lights. Look, if you ain't buying at least an L trim, you can bloody well squint at that map. It will of course always be cloth on the base sedan, and you just get a simple single DIN cassette player. On the outside, the base sedan also just gets black door handles and black mirrors, which, I mean, I know that's a standard thing manufacturers do on their base models, but I find that kind of cheap on the Legend because, base trim or not, this was still a fairly expensive model. One thing that's optional across all models is a trunk-mounted CD changer, and to LS trims you can add a car phone. You knew you were doing well if you had a car phone in 1991. I believe for most model years, keyless entry was available as a dealer-installed accessory as well. In 1992, the passenger side airbag is added to L trim, so now only the base sedan comes without one. Wood grain trim is added to all models, but it's simulated wood grain on the base and the L trim, and only the LS gets the real burlwood walnut. They also add a cup holder in 92, but only for automatic models, and LS models get heated front seats. In 1993, dual airbags become standard on all models, L trims now have a Bose audio system, and there's a new premium Bose audio system for LS models. The simulated wood grain also gets a lot better looking in 93. L models now also get body-colored side moldings, and Acura says that all Legend sedan models have been further refined to achieve even lower noise and vibration levels through the use of new upgraded engine and transmission mounts, thicker glass, and additional sound deadening materials. Both body styles also get new alloy wheel designs. The coupe, however, gets a much more significant update for 93 because under the hood of the coupe is an updated, more powerful engine known as the Type 2 engine. And thanks to some improvements like a higher flowing intake manifold, altered valve timing, and a more aggressive camshaft, power output on the Type 2 engine is 230 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque. The front brakes are upgraded with larger dual piston calipers, and to make the most out of this increased power and to improve highway fuel economy, manual coupes now come with a 6-speed transmission. This is the coupe you want. Bah! And this is really what makes the Legend so cool and unique. It's not very often that manufacturers make such a driver's-oriented luxury car. Usually, especially in the 90s, you kinda had to pick between a luxury car or a sports car. I think this is really what helps the Legend differentiate itself from the LS400 too. Trying to compete with the LS400 straight up as a pure luxury car would not be a good move. If you don't believe me, just ask the 3.5 RL. Of course, as I say this, the LS sedan loses the manual option for 93, but it's okay, the coupe is really the enthusiast model anyways, and besides, they're gonna add an even better top trim sedan for 94. Just wait. One last thing to mention for 93 coupes is a traction control system is added to the LS trim. '94 is the mid-run cosmetic update. On the front there is a new bumper, and on the back both body styles have the Legend nameplate moved from above the right taillight to the center of the tailgate with larger, wider space letters kind of making it the feature. The Acura badge, which used to be the center feature, has been moved up to accommodate this. And coupe models now get an integrated third brake light on the trunk lid. Coupe LS models also have a new body-colored chin spoiler, side sills, and a rear bumper skirt. Inside, all models get a new power tilt and telescopic steering column which links to the driver's memory seat. The Coupe remains in L and LS trims, but the sedan trims have been altered. The base model is dropped and L is now the lowest sedan trim. L and LS trims remain with pretty much the same features as last year, but above the LS trim is a new GS trim. The GS is kind of like a sedan version of the LS Coupe. It gets the Type 2 engine, the upgraded brakes, it's available with a 6-speed manual, and it still comes with all the same luxury options as the LS model. It also gets the Coupe-styled grille with a body-colored outline instead of a chrome outline, and the Coupe wheels. Truly the GOAT sedan if you ask me. Now at this point, I think it's a good time to hear a little bit more from Tyson, because he has both a 94 LS Coupe and a 94 GS sedan. So why don't I let him show you them in a little bit more detail, as well as speak to what, in his opinion, makes these such great cars.
Hey everybody, my name is Tyson Hughey, and it's an honor to be here on the Acura Advice YouTube channel. I've followed Chris's stuff for many, many years. In fact, I met him in person at the National Acura Legend meet a few years ago in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But these are two of my current 4 Acura Legends, and he felt like it was appropriate that I talk a little bit about my passion / obsession for this model. In my entire driving career, I've had 17 Acura Legends from both the first generation and the second generation. Currently my 86 sedan, who you might have seen on my channel, is on display at the local Acura dealership. A lot of time behind the wheel of Acura Legends in my driving career. You might have seen this coupe before. It's a 94 LS with a 6-speed manual that has just under 602,000 miles on it. I've had it since 2003. I actually bought the GS sedan, which is a twin to it mechanically, also a 6-speed manual that has only about 170,000 miles. So barely broken in, right, by Acura standards. So what is it about these cars that I love so much? Well, I have to really blame my mom for this entire thing. She bought a 93 L sedan automatic in green back in 1997. I was 15 years old, and I immediately gravitated toward that car. It was luxurious, it was sporty, engaging to look at, it had a great audio system. So many things as a teenager that I really just stuck with me in terms of, enjoying the driving experience with that car. So when I turned 21, I bought this 94 LS Coupe with about 95,000 miles on it, and I've since driven it essentially to the moon and back, and almost to the moon again. So it's been to about 40 US states, including Alaska. And if I had to say one thing that I perhaps love the most about the Legend, it's its durability. In terms of reliability, you really can't match a car like this. It was built to the utmost of precision, and in fact, over-engineered, I would say. They really went above and beyond to put this car at the next level in terms of reliability. Since we have these cars here, and thank you to my friend Ryan for driving one of them, we'll just do a quick walk around on the cars so you can see kind of the visual cues that separate the coupe and the sedan for the Gen 2. One thing that's interesting to note, they don't share any body panels. So if you're in the Acura Legend community, you know very well that a coupe's hood and a sedan's hood do not match. The headlights and taillights are different. Virtually every exterior body panel is completely distinct. In fact, really the interior is the only thing that carries over. And by that, I mean the dash, the instrument cluster, because the seats are different as well. So here's the 94 Coupe. This was obviously the refresh model. So Chris is going to talk more about the distinct aesthetic changes that they made to the rear end of the car for 1994-95 only. The sedan actually got the same treatment in those same 2 model years. So you can see the Legend nomenclature spelled out across the trunk lid here. Both of these cars, by the way, have some aftermarket updates. The lip spoiler that you see here was an add-on that I did to both earlier in my ownership experience. So I do love the factory spoiler on these. My 95 LS Coupe, which is a green car, I restored and put the factory wing spoiler on, which is also a very good look. Interesting to note, of course, the coupe for 94-95 has the integrated LED brake light, so you don't actually need a spoiler LED there. Here's the GS sedan. So this one, believe it or not, I bought this car as a replacement for the coupe in case something ever happened to the coupe. At that time, I think the 2-door had something like 300,000 miles, and I thought maybe I need a backup car, but unfortunately, or fortunately, The coupe never had anything go wrong with it. So this GS sedan has basically been a garage queen. Mechanically, both of these cars are absolutely bone stock. They have the Type 2 230 horsepower V6. Mechanically, aside from real routine maintenance on these cars, they are pretty much as they left the factory in Japan about 30 plus years ago. Acura Advice asked me to talk about some of my favorite features of the car. One of the first ones, obviously, besides the reliability aspect, is definitely going to be this awesome over-engineering with the doors and the windows. So this car has something kind of uncommon for its era. It has these soft closed doors. So you can kind of see, if you get closer over here, I'll let you come take a look at this. So if you get the door just within about a quarter of an inch or so, it sucks itself in there. Also, these back windows go down. So not a very common thing for the coupe, any coupe back in that era. And it's kind of a fun little flex to have these down for a little bit of ventilation. Other than that, I wanted to show you the trunk, even though it's full of clutter, but this is absolutely part of Legend ownership, is having spare parts. So by the way, thanks my friend Chris for having a 600K plate made last year. But this is kind of standard stuff that I carry on road trips. And sorry, it's kind of shuffled around here, but I have a starter, I have an alternator in here, I have some suspension parts, a ignition switch, fire extinguisher, there's a main relay in here, there's a clutch slave cylinder, I think in my other car, I have an alternator. That is a clutch, speaking of, which by the way, the car's on the original clutch. I have records. I know a lot of people, this is a controversial topic. People don't believe the car's on the original clutch. I don't know necessarily how I can prove that to anybody other than I bought it from the original owner. I have records back to 1994 and it has never been changed.
Bah!
This thing's been to Fairbanks, Alaska and back. Same thing with the sedan. So a few miscellaneous parts in here scattered around. I keep a set of really nice floor mats for when I show the car at Legend meets and things like that. The overall, I would say, driving experience on the highway. So if you're in sixth gear in a Legend, manual, at 70 or 80 miles an hour, you're barely pushing this motor, and that makes it a quiet experience. It's not something that's going to wear you out coast to coast. Also, just the fit and finish in terms of the tolerances. So the car was definitely over-engineered in terms of sound deadening and the way that the doors sound when they close. And obviously in LS and GS trim, you've got all the amenities with heated seats and burlwood trim and things like this that, when this car was brand new, it was $42,000 plus, which is astronomical in 2026 money. I get this question a lot. If I had to pare down my entire car collection into just a couple cars, I would certainly say the Legends would have to stay because they are what got me into the Acura brand. They're something that to this day I would trust from coast to coast. And it's also, now that we're 30 years beyond the discontinuation of the model, they're getting exceptionally tough to find. So you feel a little bit of sort of unique vibe driving it around. And it's one of those cars that kind of like, if you know, and you get a good thumbs up, you can definitely tell somebody appreciates what you're driving. Last but not least, I have to say the Acura Legend community is above and beyond anything else I've been part of. This is a group that gets together every year for a National Acura Legend meet. We've been all over from coast to coast, and it's a matter of time until we venture into Canada, where Mr. Acura Advice is located. But take my word for it, when we do a meet in British Columbia, I will be there. So anyway, that's my tour of my Legends, 2 of the 4 anyway. I appreciate you coming along for the ride. And check out my channel sometime. We'll talk to you later.
I would have to agree with Tyson on the Legend community. Everyone was very welcoming when I showed up in 2024 as some random no one really knew from Canada in my poor man's Legend coupe. For the final 1995 model year, everything stays mostly the same, but they add a limited run special edition sedan model, which is basically an L trim with leather, special 7-spoke alloy wheels, special edition floor mats, and keyless entry. The SC comes auto only, and it's available in 2 different two-toned paint color schemes. One of them being this one here, which is taffeta, oh boy. One of them being this one here, which is taffeta white over granite silver. Hopefully I pronounced that right. This is why I don't usually talk about color names. I'm too peasant to know how to pronounce these fancy things. And there was also Sherwood green over Canterbury green. Nice to see some two-toned paint colors again. In 1996, the Legend was replaced by the 3.5 RL. Now the third gen was still called the Legend outside of North America, but here Acura decided to copy everyone else and ditch their cool memorable names for alphanumeric names. I actually read this was partially done so people would say the brand name more, because market research showed that people were just referring to their products by their epic model names, like Legend or Integra. So now if someone asks you what you drive, you can't just say Legend, you gotta be like, oh, it's a 3.5R y to the power of pi. I don't it's an Acura. So let me know your thoughts on Acura's OG flagship. They sure don't make anything like this today. Precision crafted performance. More like soccer mom inspired crossovers. I'll guarantee you one thing, there is no modern car you are buying from any showroom today that's gonna make it to 600,000 miles. Oh, how do you know? You just think everything older is better. Hey, you don't have to believe me. In fact, if you want to buy a modern car, go right ahead. Less demand on the older models will make them easier for people like me to buy. Now all your used Acura are belong to us.